G'day everyone, I am the man called Kemosabe, the man with the plan from the land down under, and this is my review of CHANGO the Broken Veil, written by Ben Goldsmith and Cesar Feliciano, with art by Cesar as well. As usual, we'll take a look at the cover, and then look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of this comic. This is a digital preview of the book being offered on both Kickstarter and Indiegogo. On Kickstarter it made more than $4,000, but on Indiegogo the project was ended early by the creators. Whether that was because they weren't seeing the sort of numbers they expected on Indiegogo I couldn't say, but I think it's worth noting that this is one of maybe a half a dozen smaller indie projects I've seen do well on Kickstarter and fail or cancel early on Indiegogo. Comicsgate backs Indiegogo as a platform of choice, and there are several advantages to that platform, but anyone beginning or funding a campaign should do some research into what each funding application has to offer their individual campaign. The cover of the book speaks to a more subdued story, something sinister and subversive, far from the skyscraper-shattering superhero fights of the mainstream. The rosary and cross hint at cultural and religious tones that might be present in the story. The young man on the front could be villain or victim, but the demonic hand indicates some kind of transfer of power or possession. The font and colour of the title has me thinking South America even before I open the book. This cover is striking enough that I think, had I seen it in a comic book store, I would have taken this book down off the shelf and had a flip through it to see what it was about. This is ultimately the job of the cover of an unknown comic book or property. You need to make the potential customer give you a few more seconds of their time you want, via your cover, to convince them to look at the interior and take a chance on what your book has to offer. There is a very nice foreword by both creators about how this is a story dedicated for mothers and the unique role they have in raising their children. The story begins with Ruben and his mother at a festival in Jamaica, tracking down a rare vinyl record. It's clear that music is an important part of these two people's lives. Ruben's mother finds the record and mentions the cover art is based on traditional garb worn by those who worship a particular demon spirit, but the shopkeeper interrupts her before she can say the name, warning her words and names have real power. The pair return home on a plane and Ruben's mother sings to keep herself calm during the flight. Ruben reflects on the shopkeeper, that he seemed creepy or off. A perky flight attendant puts in a song request and the story jumps forward 10 years. Ruben is worn and tired, a young man now. A downtrodden flight attendant helps the passengers, and on her shoulder, invisible to anybody but Ruben, is a tiny demon whispering doubts and fears into her ears, making her doubt her husband's fidelity. The pilot's own personal demon is trying to convince him to crash the plane. We see the other passengers' demons taunting them. Your children hate you, you're ugly, your husband prefers younger women. Ruben's mother returns to her seat, and from their exchange we see that their relationship has changed. It's strained, the joyfulness and the sharing isn't there anymore. We see Ruben's own demon, and they re-establish the rule that it isn't allowed to talk about his mother. The demon taunts Ruben, saying his life would be even worse without him. The story continues to jump from the past to the present. Ruben and his mother arrive in California to visit family in the present. Ruben remembers how he met and was bonded with his own personal demon. In the past, as his mother sang the songs from the elusive album, and much like the original Evil Dead, it summons demonic forces. A large demon appears before Ruben, and it appears to change forms and introduces itself as CHANGO. Ruben's mother tries to convince him there are no demons in his room, rather it's the spirit of his dead father come to visit him. In the present, CHANGO tells Ruben that he should see their relationship as a blessing because it offers him insight into others. We see more examples of demons preying on people's insecurities. CHANGO is concerned when he hears people chanting, and Ruben reveals he brought the demon to the largest sect of CHANGO worshippers in the nation, hoping they can free him of his curse. In the temple, the worshippers have a statue of CHANGO, and looks nothing like the demon that is linked to Ruben. Ruben's mother arrives and becomes enraged when she hears the chanting, which is the same music she heard and sang along to when she bought the record years ago. Furious, Ruben's mother attacks the congregation, but it's too late. The chanting has summoned a demon, a gigantic evil spirit resembling the statue. What follows is a horror movie-like chase scene throughout the back streets of California. Ruben and his demon are separated, but Ruben and his mother band together to take the fight back to the possessed cultist and the demonic leader. The book ends with Ruben and his mother reconciled and united, ready for the conclusion to the story in Book 2. This book is steeped in a non-European based culture. The dialogue, aesthetics and theme are unfamiliar and offer an opportunity to read about a people and a place that many of us might never experience. The art is very technically competent in most places, and it blends a kind of stark, hard-edged realism with cartoony elements, especially when depicting the demons as reflections of their hosts. The story had genuinely unsettling elements, and I could see it adapted into a very serviceable horror movie or even a mini-series of sorts. The writers do a good job of weaving backstory and flashbacks in between current events, and often, just as a flashback is getting really good or about to reveal something critical, the readers are wrenched back to the present, left wanting more. While the cultural filter works to the story's advantage in many ways, it also erects a kind of wall between the readers and the nuances of the story. In some places the dialogue seems stilted or not as natural as it maybe could have been, and I'm left to wonder, is that a shortcoming of the writing process or a cultural aspect that hasn't translated so well? There feels like there is potential here to talk more about the demonic elements, spirits, and entire belief systems that we are likely unfamiliar with. The demons are touched on briefly, but Reuben only knows what little he can find online. The art is very strong in most places, but now and then there is a panel or an angle that is off. It'd be churlish of me, someone who failed to make it as a comic book artist, to point out every perspective or anatomy issue any artist has, but some of these missteps are pretty egregious. They actually pull you from the story and make you think, hey, that's not right. I think the decision to use flat colours was a smart one. Detailed, highly rendered colours would have highlighted the mistakes, but also detracted from the art when it is really good, and there are plenty of places in this book where it is good. I found some of the demonic stuff genuinely unsettling. Not in a snowflakey, this affected me negatively kind of way, but the rawness of seeing everyday people under demonic attack was confronting. Was it because the events were filtered through an unfamiliar culture, making things seem more alien? Was it because they were happening to a child, or was it because, aside from the demonic entities, the world it depicted was completely normal and just like our own? Seeing the demons urge their hosts on to do violence or play on their worst fears could hit close to home for many readers. While some people might be immune to that doubting voice in their head or heart that voices their worst fears or their deepest insecurities, I doubt anyone out there doesn't at least hear it. In that way, this story is universal. We all experience personal doubt at times. We are all vulnerable to attack. The story jumps from how Reuben got this way to his life as it is now, but I would like to have seen some more examples of how this has affected him in the past 10 years. Did it lead to broken friendships, the loss of girlfriends, or alienation by peers? Just a few scenes, a Sixth Sense starring Stanley-style event would have shown the long-reaching effects of Reuben's curse. The authors wrote the story as a love letter to mothers everywhere, and Reuben and his mother go from a loving relationship to a strained one and end up on the road to reconciliation, all events impacted by Reuben's father's early death. Some of the scenes of Reuben and his mother failing to connect are quite heartbreaking. He can't tell her why he is the way he is, and she doesn't know how to ask. There is nuance here that you rarely find in superhero comics. This isn't the sort of book I'd normally buy. The cover, the content, the characters, the art and the story feel like they'd be more at home in an issue of Heavy Metal magazine. There is a veneer of the different, an opportunity to find value and worth in something possibly outside your wheelhouse, or at least outside of my own. I'd like to see a sequel where Reuben grows up to be some kind of exorcist, demon hunter or mystic, roaming South America, fighting the forces the modern world doesn't believe in anymore, like a less cynical movie Constantine, helping the poor and the forgotten, the most vulnerable in society. But that might just be me wanting to transpose my own interests on a work that wasn't necessarily made for me. But the question remains, will I be back for issue 2? I will. Some of the dialogue and interactions didn't quite hit home, again, perhaps caused by cultural miscues, but there is a powerful, close-to-the-heart story in this book. The big reveal near the end of the book upends everything you thought you knew about the world the book is set in, and because of that, you are doubly motivated to come back and read issue 2.